Michael was dressed in a navy blue suit with a white shirt and a red tie, and Vito leaned over him to straighten out the tie and pull its knot nearly to the collar. "After the councilman gives you a tour," he said, "one of his aides will drive you home." He took a money clip from his inside jacket pocket, slid a $5 bill free, and handed it to Michael. "You won't need this," he said, "but you should always have a few dollars with you when you're away from home, capiche?" "See," Michael said. "Thanks, Pop." In front of the City Hall steps, Councilman Fisher waited with his hands on his hips and a broad smile on his face. He was sharply dressed in a brown window-pane plaid suit with a high-collared shirt, a bright yellow tie, and a yellow carnation in his lapel. Though it was cold, even in the bright sunlight, he carried his overcoat draped on his arm. He was a stocky, middle-aged man with bright shocks of blonde hair showing around the edges of his fedora. Michael pulled on his overcoat and followed his father out of the car and across the sidewalk, a wide sidewalk, where the councilman was walking toward them with his arm extended out for a handshake. "This is my youngest son, Michael," Vito said after shaking the councilman's hand and exchanging greetings. He put his arm around Michael's shoulder. "He's very grateful to you for your generosity, Councilman." The councilman put his hands on Michael's shoulders and looked him over. To Vito, he said, "Fine-looking young man you've got here, Mr. Corleone." To Michael, he said, "So your father tells me you're developed as an interest in government. Is that right, young man?" "Yes, sir," Michael said. The councilman laughed, "Ha, ha," and patted Michael on the back. "We'll take good care of him," he said to Vito, and then he added, "Say, Vito, you and your family should join us in the big civic responsibility parade we're planning for the spring. The mayor's going to be there, all the city councilmen, prominent New York families." To Michael, he said, "You'd like to march in a parade like that, wouldn't you, young man?" "Sure," Michael said, and he looked up to Vito, waiting for his okay. Vito put his hands on the back of Michael's neck. "We'd love to participate in such a parade." "I'll have the invitation sent right to you," Fisher said. "My girls are all busy as bees organizing it all." Michael said, "Can everybody walk in the parade? The whole family?" "Absolutely," the councilman said. "That's the very idea. We're going to show these subversive elements, these anarchists and whatnot, we're a good American city, and we support our government." Vito smiled as if something the councilman had particularly amused him. "I have to be going now." He offered Fisher his hand. To Michael, he said, "This evening you could tell us all about it at dinner." "Sure, Pop," Michael said, and he started up the City Hall steps with the councilman as Vito rejoined Genko in the back seat of the Essex. Genko said, "Mikey's turning into a handsome kid." "He looks sharp all dressed up." "He's smart," Vito said. He watched his son ascend the steps of City Hall as Richie pulled the Essex onto the road. When the boy was out of sight, he leaned back in his seat and loosened his ties slightly. He asked Genko, "Have we heard anything more from Frankie Pentanelli?" "Nothing," said Genko. He struck his fingers under his vest and rubbed his belly. "Somebody pulled a stick up in one of Mariposa's clubs. Took him for a lot of money, we hear. We don't know who. Nobody's recognized him yet. They're probably gambling with the money or spending it on dames. They're probably Irish." "Why do you say that?" "One of them had an Irish accent, and it makes sense. They were Italian. We'd know them." "You think the same gang that was stealing his whiskey?" "Well, that's what Mariposa figures." Genko spun the derby around in his lap. He slapped the seat beside him and laughed. "I like these bastardi," he said. "They're driving Joe crazy." Vito rolled his window down an inch. "What about Luca Brasi?" he asked. "Have we had any more news?" "See," Genko said. "The doctor says there was brain damage. He can still talk and all, but slower, like he's stupid." Yeah, Richie said from behind the steering wheel. "Was he a genius before?" "He wasn't stupid," Vito said. Genko said, "He took enough pills to kill a gorilla." "But not enough," Vito said, "to kill Luca Brasi." "The doctor says he thinks he may get worse over time," Genko said. "I forget the word he used. He may something." "Deteriorate?" Vito said. "That's right," Genko said. "He may deteriorate over time." Vito asked, "Did he say how much he might deteriorate?" "It's the brain," Genko said. "He says you can't tell ever with the brain." "But right now," Vito asked. "Right now he's slow, but he's still talking, getting around?" "Well, that's what I am told," Genko said. "He just sounds a little stupid." "Hey," Richie said, "that's half the people we deal with." Vito looked up at the roof of the car and stroked his neck. He seemed to disappear into a whirl of calculations. What do our lawyers say about the case against Brasi? He said. Junko sighed as if annoyed by the question. They found the infant's bones in the furnace. Vito put his hand over his stomach and looked away at the mention of the infant's bones. He took a breath before he pushed on. They could argue that the girl threw the baby in the furnace before she died, and that Brasi tried to kill himself when he realized what he's done. His own man brought in the police, Jenko said, his voice getting louder. Louis Battaglia, who's been with Luca, I'm told, since he was a baby himself. And he's willing to testify he saw Luca drag Filomena into the basement. And after telling everyone he was going to burn up his own baby, and then he saw his come out of the basement without the baby, and the Filomena hysterical. Just hysterical, Vito. Jenko shouted. Why are we wasting our time on this bastardo? Chicazo! Why, we should just kill the son of a bitch ourselves. Vito put his hand on Jenko's knee and held it there until his friend calmed down. Easy. They were on Canal Street. The clamor and noise of the city grew louder in contrast to the quiet inside the car. Vito rolled up his window. Can we find Luigi Battaglia? He asked Jenko. Jenko shrugged, meaning he didn't know whether or not Luigi could be found. Find him, Vito said. I believe he's someone who can be reasoned with. What about Filomena? She's not telling the police nothing, Jenko said, looking away from Vito, out the window at the crowds of the sidewalk. She's scared to death, he added, turning them to face Vito, as if having finally pulled himself together, settled back into his role as consigliere. Maybe it's time for her and her family to go back to Sicily, Vito said. Vito, you know I do not question you. Jenko shifted in his seat so that he was facing Vito. Why are you concerning yourself with this animal? He asked. They say he's the devil, right? He should be burning in hell, Vito. His mother, when she found out what he had done, she took her own life. Mother and son, suicide. Suicide? This is a family that's... Jenko clutched his forehead as if the word he was looking for was inside his head somewhere. As if the word he was looking for, and he was trying to pull it out, but he couldn't. Pazzo, he said finally. Vito said in a whisper, as if frustrated as if being forced to speak out the words, and not without a touch of anger. We do what we must, Jenko. You know that. But Luca Brasi, Jenko pleaded. Is it worth it? Because he frightens Mariposa? I tell you the truth, Vito. He frightens me too. This man disgusts me. He's a beast. He deserves to rot in hell. Vito moved close to Jenko and spoke softly enough that Richie Gatto in the front seat couldn't hear him. I don't argue with you, Jenko, he said, but a man like Luca Brasi, a man with a reputation so awful that even the strongest man fear him. If a man like that can be controlled, he's a powerful weapon. Vito held Jenko's wrist. And then he says, and we're going to need a powerful weapons, he said, if we're going to have a chance against Mariposa. Jenko clutched his stomach with both hands, as if distressed by a sudden pain. Agita, he said, and sighed as if the weight of the world were contained in that one word. And you think you can control him? He asked. We'll see, Vito said. He shifted back to the side of the car. Find Luigi, he said, and bring Filomena to me. As an afterthought, he added, give Fisher a little something extra this month. He rolled down the window again and felt around in his jacket pocket for a cigar. Outside, the city was bustling, and now he was approached. Now, as they approached Hester Street and the Genco Pura warehouse in his office, Vito recognized several other faces on the sidewalk, talking outside the shops and standing around on stoops in the doorways. When they neared Nazarene's bakery, he told Richie to pull over. Genco, he said, getting out of the car. Let's get some cannoli. Genco touched his stomach and hesitated a moment, and then shrugged and said, Sure, cannoli.